For this activity, we're going to be talking about vocabulary and different ways that you can use it in your classroom. I was listening to this podcast. It's teaching middle school ELA down here, and this is the episode Making Vocabulary Meaningful. And as I was listening to the Teaching Middle School ELA podcast, I started to create as I was hearing all these amazing ideas. So make sure you check out this link. Right here is the blog post that they mention in the article that just goes over some other resources and ideas for vocabulary as well. So the first thing they talked about was using these kind of examples and tasks for the students with their vocab words. So I created a FRAIR model and I was thinking of examples that students could do, non-examples, symbolizing this word. They could do colors that symbolize the mood of this word. If they were to give this word a job, what word would be fitting for it? I really like that last one. So thinking about the word and then what job would be really good for that word. Maybe it's construction, maybe it's education, maybe it's like a scientist. So students are taking that word and they're doing all of these connections, or they're defining it or sentence. So down in this slide deck has different ideas on using that FAIR model. They also suggested taking 20 words and maybe just focusing on 5 words a week. So really scaffolding that word list down to make it smaller. The next idea that they talked about was using many words from maybe a word wall for 2 minutes. So students would have a vocab list or some type of word wall, and they would set the timer for 2 minutes. Once that 2 minutes was going, students would then have like a topic for their conversation with another student. For example, this topic is you're stranded on a deserted island. So again, students have 2 minutes, and their goal is to use as many vocabulary words that they can in those 2 minutes. You, as a teacher, are walking around and you are formatively assessing students. You're listening to what words are they using, what words are they struggling with, which words are not popping up, and then you can use that to inform your instruction for that day. Here's one with shopping. So have your students come up with those different topics as well. You can also come up with those topics too. The next idea that they thought about was 3 truths and a lie. So students have a word, and then they have 3 different truths, and then they have 1 lie. So here's that lie. Have your students create these. You don't need to always create these for the vocab words. Have your students create them and come up with a lie as well. So here's just an example. They'll have a word, 3 truths, and 1 lie. And then the students will have to figure out and explain why that's the lie. This next one they talked about was students were in 2 rows. So if you have maybe 30 students in your class, 15 students on one side, 15 on another, and they're facing each other and they're all partnered up. Each student will have a conversation for every single round. The first round, they get their vocab word. You'll type it in this box. You'll set the timer for 30 seconds, and students have a conversation where they have to use that word in context for 30 seconds. Then they go to round 2. This time they move 3 people down, and again they have 30 seconds. New word, and you start the timer and they have that conversation. This round you can add maybe some other elements. So right here, round 3, they get the word. They maybe move 2 people down. They have to talk like a baby this round, and then 30 seconds. So again, you can kind of change what prompts happen during this stand-up activity. Then right here, students are going to listen to a paragraph or read a paragraph, and then you're going to ask them what vocabulary would they use to apply in this paragraph. Then when they do that, they're going to explain why they said that and kind of talk more in depth about the connection with that paragraph with that vocab word. They also talked about using a picture book. So again, from the picture book I just read to you, what vocabulary word would you apply to this and why? So again, students are making those connections and they're thinking about the vocabulary words in context. This one right here is using like a Facebook or social media. So students have a word and they made a Facebook page for it. And I love this activity because I think it can really go deep into students' knowledge about a certain word. They also talked about maybe using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. And again, students are able to create that word. They could do it on paper like this example, or they could do it digitally as well. Then this final activity was bumper words. This activity was new to me. I've never heard of this one, but you can kind of see right here. I'm going to go ahead and make this kind of white. Students will create like a first group of words, and they're going to look at all the words in that box. They're going to decide which one does not belong or which one does not fit. The one that doesn't fit gets bumped to the next group, and then they're going to look at some other words that might not fit this group. Once they figure out which one doesn't belong, they are then going to move that word to the next group and so on. Students can kind of see these different words. They can also use words that aren't on their vocabulary word list. And more details on this one is in the speaker notes at this blog post. But I thought it could be a really fun activity for students to kind of bump words around that don't fit in different lists or categories, and then they can justify why they moved that one out of that word list. So again, these are tons of vocabulary ideas, and I'm excited to try them with some teachers. I just think they take vocab to the next level of using them in context. So check them out, try them, and let me know how they go.